In PoE2, we'll be able to revive party members and post the game. What's your opinion? For the past 6 days, Jonathan Rogers, game director of Path of Exile, has been answering a lot of questions regarding Path of Exile 2 in the Path of Exile 2 subreddit. And I wanted to share this video like 6 days ago when he said something about WSD movement and the use of Flask, but then he made another comment like this one, and then he made this one, and this one, and this one. So I said, it, and release this video you're now watching, where I tell you the TLDR version of everything that's been said until today, December the 22, and I will show you behind me the full conversation if you want to pause and read it more carefully. So let's start, shall we? Someone was worried about keybind pressure now that we have more active skills in combat, WSD movement, and also Flask usage. Jonathan said they tried having less Flask, but it didn't feel good. He assured there was no problem with Flasking plus WSD. Another user asked about automatization in builds, and the response was that the capabilities of automation in PoE2 are much higher. There is a possibility that the beta access will be similar to the last one throughout supporter packs. When asked about mechanics such as strongboxes in Path of Exile 2, Jonathan said that all content port over to PoE2 is going to get a major revamp and a lot more love. Another question was if you had to kill all bosses in the campaign to get the extra stats. Well, each boss in Path of Exile 2 has an individual stat it boosts when killed, but also there is a designated number of permanent stat boosts throughout the campaign. Each league they rotate which bosses grant them, so it stays fresh and you don't need to kill all of them every single time. Another user proposed that maybe killing the map version of that boss later on should give the stat also as an alternative, and Jonathan liked the idea. But what about alternatives to endgame such as Delve or Sanctum in Path of Exile 2? Jonathan responded that there absolutely gonna be alternative endgame options, keeping in mind that maps are still the central mechanic. The beta will come with the whole campaign and endgame maps, but not the plot until release. Maybe similar to having maps, but not the Maven, Eater of Worlds, and so on attached to it. Now it will be easier to upgrade your character without needing sockets, and also you will find more useful items on the ground. Someone asked if WSD movement will benefit ranger builds more than melee ones. Jonathan replied that it is inevitable for that to be the case in some situations, but that kind of thinking can hold development back. Also said that upon trying melee, turns out it feels also really good with WSD, as you can reposition attacks faster than dodge. There will be crafting and also crafting bench in Path of Exile 2. There is a very specific goal that people engage with it more than they currently do. The beta will last at least a couple of league cycles to test balance changes and development of a fresh economy, and those leagues could also be shorter, like 1 or 2 months. People still ask about endgame looking builds, to which Jonathan clarified that they are still working on where exactly an endgame balance should be at, and later add that they will show such builds quite soon. Regarding accuracy and evasion as updating mechanics, he replied that in Path of Exile 2, distance from the target really matters. The farther the distance, the more accuracy needed. Melee characters don't really need to worry about it too much, but rangers will. There will be hideouts in Path of Exile 2 with some really needed UI improvements. Jonathan says that gender selection and character customization is a lot of work for little to no payoff. They are not interested in that right now, as it is better to have 4 characters say 40 things than having 40 characters saying only 4 things. Makes a lot of sense. Regarding weapons, animations, and dim, Jonathan said that attacks are limited to a specific weapon type, making a sword have a very different feel than an axe, for example. It's not a limitation, but rather a huge design advantage, where they can make animations way more interesting and unique, as there is no need of watering them all down in order for them to work for all weapons exactly the same. You can shoot while moving without using WSD movement. You click where you want to go and use a skill. You will perform the skill while moving to that location. Regarding divination cards, Jonathan says that they are in a hard spot. The ability to save up is cool and they want them in Path of Exile 2, but they are looking for other ways of acquiring them other than grinding the same map over and over for all eternity. There will be controller support in Path of Exile 2, and Steam Deck should be able to work. they need to check its performance first. Another user asked if Path of Exile 1 skills will be in Path of Exile 2. What about Righteous Fire? Jonathan said that the flavors of some skills will be the same, even if the mechanics are different. Uncut gems are not class specific. If you open one with a witch, it will offer some gems by default, but you can scroll and find the rest. Each uncut gem has a level, and gems offered are divided by rows. A level 7 uncut gem will unlock any gem up to the 7th row. Then what about guilds and new guild features? He replied that it's not on top of the list of priorities and it will probably come post-release. We are not planning to release 2 league supporter packs for each league. It's a lot of work right now, and we'll stick to the same supporter packs for PoE1 and PoE2 for the moment. And this is probably the most fun question that's been asked. Is there any particular reason for not having guns if crossbow skills are inspired by shooters? And Jonathan answered with this image. I love this guy. Are totems and brands still included in Path of Exile 2? Totems for sure, and brands still under discussion. There's a big emphasis in Path of Exile 2 on class identity and specific weapons. What kind of freedoms are we gonna have? Well, Jonathan replied that Path of Exile 2 is going to be like Path of Exile 1. The only thing locked by class are ascendancies, nothing more. It's just marketing and stereotypes are easier to understand. Will the zigzag campaign still end around level 65ish? We still don't know, and it will depend on progression testing. It's been asked if there is a way for skin unlocks instead of skin transfers. The philosophy stays the same, is that you cannot look like you are wearing a Kaom's heart unless you actually found one. That's how it's currently designed. Another user explained that maybe you can put real items in the MTX slots to make those models override with equipped gear, an idea that Jonathan actually liked. Now what about minions? Someone asked if a smarter AI, more direct control, and de-emphasized minion survival will be a thing. Jonathan told him that he will enjoy some things yet to be announced. Minioners, rejoice. He then explained us that he will do showcase of all classes before beta and probably some videos on ascendancies. I want to see this shit so bad. One interesting question that was asked was if the beta will continue until launch or for just a period of time. The answer was until launch, and we hoped it wouldn't need to be as long as a year, more like 6 months. That will mean if the beta is in June, we can expect a very nice Christmas. The intention in Path of Exile 2 is that not every character uses auras. With the new spirit mechanic as a resource, we will have to choose between auras, heralds, and trigger gems. Auras are going to be more useful for party and minion play, and Templar will have interesting ways to use those auras, as it's in theme for him. Regarding Filter Blade and Filter List, Jonathan said that they don't have time to write a first-party filter editor right now, but he's not against the idea. Maybe having an editor like they have in Last Epoch in the future will be kind of interesting. Regarding in-game trading, Jonathan still thinks that website trading has a better interface than what they will be able to do in-game, and he has the feeling that people will also prefer that. He might be right, but I still want to see one in-game. Multiplayer in Path of Exile 2 is way more interesting and synergistic with how a skill trigger off based on the state of monsters and environment. In Path of Exile 2, you can pause the game if you are playing by yourself, like jerking off. That means you can take your time to read the highlighted monster mods, buffs, and debuffs. Quality currencies will be more rare and more of an endgame thing. There might not be tainted currency, at least not in the start. One guy asked about zooming builds like Flicker and Strike. The difference with the new Flicker is that it no longer bypasses cooldown. Also, power charges increase the number of flickers before it ends. Finally, he reminds us that getting charges now is way more difficult. Character slots from Path of Exile 1 will carry over to Path of Exile 2. The currency in Path of Exile 2 has removed all reasons to click over and over multiple times. New sockets don't need it, Chaos Orbs now don't need it either, and alterations are gone. There is a huge discussion taking place about respecting the passive tree and why is it not something they really like. In PoE2, you can revive party team members. It takes some time and can be interrupted if hit. In maps, it will cost a portal to revive, and no revives are allowed in hardcore. And the last one is that you will be able to pre-plan the passive tree in the future, like it's implemented in the Chinese version, once they made the UX better. Not right now, but yes in the future. And that will be all for now. Maybe in 2 days we have like 3,000 millions of these, and I will be there. See you in the next one. Un abrazo.